Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Speaking of the offensive line, it was reported this morning that Christian Darrisaw is getting a second opinion in Philadelphia. Do you expect that he'll be gone for a little bit?
Yeah, I know, he's taking it one day at a time, working really hard with Eric Sugarman. I'd let Coach Zimmer comment more on that, but he's been working his tail off. We've been cautious with him, taking it slow. And when he's back, we'll take him. Otherwise, until then, getting a lot of good extra work for Rashad Hill.
And that is new Ball of Fire Vikings offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak answering question from Chad Graff of The Athletic about Christian Darrisaw. The report that Chad was referring to, actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, originated on the Scoop podcast with the Scoop appearance with Doogie right here on Mackey and Judd. Phil out until Monday, so we are again combining conduits of trouble with the Mackey and Judd show, which means it's Zulgad, it's my good friend, Star Tribune sports columnist Scoggins, and of course the one constant on this show, Declan, executive producer, because somebody has to be
the Rashad Hill. The Rashad Hill. I keep getting plugged back in.
Oh wait, would you prefer it to be the Rashad Hill or Jay Cave? Because we can make it Jay Cave if you want.
I don't. I'll take Rashad Hill. Honestly, okay. I'll take Rashad Hill. Honestly, I'll take Rashad Hill.
All right, Chipper, let's start with the Vikings and what Clint just talked about, which was Christian Darrisaw. After that press conference got done, Tom Pelissero reported that I'm trying to think of the way that this was put because it was very comically football. That Christian Darrisaw had a minor core muscle procedure done in Philadelphia by the same doctor who did the original groin surgery on him back in January. And so we are now to a point where a guy who is yet to practice is going to be out. He's saying he hopes he can be back by week 1. I'm saying you're not going to be back by week 1, but this is definitely offensive line wise not where you want to start.
No, and I saw Zimmer's quotes today. He didn't seem too optimistic about week 1 either. And just I wasn't there. I didn't hear it, but it sounded like Zimmer's losing patience quickly with this situation, to put it kindly. Yeah, no, I mean, I was probably overly naive when I thought when they drafted Darrisaw that, okay, they got their left tackle. He's starting week 1. Here we go. Everything's fixed. Problem solved. I didn't think I honestly thought both him and Davis would be in the starting lineup at week 1, just because, and I know it's you don't like to have 2 rookies starting week 1 on an offensive line, but I just felt like it was an upgrade from what they had. And on paper, I guess the question I had, Judd, is did the team miss something in the evaluation process pre-draft?
As far as the surgery went? Because it was in January, so like you knew. I think it. So let's assume, because he ordinarily is, that Zimmer is telling the most truth here, right? Because Mike gets impatient and then he spouts the truth, which is great for us. I think so. I think Rick told him, "Hey, this guy had this procedure in January. He's fine now. He should be fine for the start of camp." And I think that's where Mike is frustrated. So to answer your question, I think Zimmer would agree with you that something was missed as far as what the expectation was. So when Gladney got let go, is that 2 weeks back now, Chipper?
2 weeks, yeah.
So the next day at the press conference, I asked Mike about just in general first round picks who don't make it, which is a problem, which this team has had at times. And Mike, in my opinion, again, frustrated. God love him because he gets frustrated. Took a sideways shot at Rick by saying, "Oh, and if guys get hurt, you don't know what's going to happen." But his last line was, "But Rick treats them like gold, like he's gonna find the best player available and always get him." So I would say the answer to your question is yes. I also would say at this point in time, get the guy healthy. And I don't know if that means an extensive timeout. I don't know if that means he's back by week 2, but he is potentially still your franchise left tackle for a long time. So I would caution anyone saying he has to play now to say, no, he actually has to play when he can play. Because the most important thing in the career of Christian Darrisaw is it's long.
Yeah. Is his career not being on the field week one. And you absolutely at this point, because clearly something has lingered throughout the spring and summer after having what they thought getting it fixed. So it's we can say it's minor, but this hasn't been a minor deal for him. I mean, it's required 2 surgeries now. And so hopefully this solves it. But no, now you just say, if there is any preconceived notions that, hey, he's going to be your starter week one, okay, that's gone, right? That ain't happening. Now you just, however long it takes for him to get ready, because now you have to look at the long play, and yeah, he needs to be ideally your long-term left tackle. But then I saw Rashad Hill got a little banged up in that practice yesterday. So I mean, it shows you how, as optimistic as everything looked right after the draft in terms of this line being better, how thin things still can be and how tenuous it still is. It just has not gone the way I think a lot of us thought it was going to go.
And that's the problem too. And so you said in talking about Darrisaw, you said something that I actually said yesterday exactly about Cleveland, which is this. We've assumed a lot. Hey, Cleveland was drafted as a left tackle, but then he played right guard, and he was an upgrade on Drew Samia. And now he's going to left guard, and I think he's going to be pretty good there, but we don't know that. And I saw him in that first practice against the Broncos on Wednesday, and Chip, he wasn't good. But I mean, I've just been assuming, Garrett Bradbury has to improve, right? Well, he doesn't have to, especially against the pass. Udo's stepping into play right guard, so he looks good. Okay, but there were times in training camp 2020 where Drew Samia looked good. So my point is, I actually have a lot of concerns about this line because the one thing that they got last year was this. They got really solid play from their tackles. Mm-hmm. And I can't, beyond right tackle where I do have faith, I can't even tell you that I necessarily trust the tackles now because Reef had a good year. Rashad Hill, I mean, he is a backup. He's a nice backup, and a swing tackle, but he's not a starting left tackle in this league on a really good team.
No, and go back to your original point about expectations and what we think. We just assume because the guy's taken in the first round, he's going to be good. Well, that's you hope, and probably that should be the expectation that you're spending that kind of draft capital on a first round pick for a reason. But I mean, we've seen guys not pan out, and so I think Cleveland, what we saw last year when he stepped in and pinched, that was promising, but it wasn't like we're lining them up for Pro Bowls yet, and so I think right now, if you were to look at it, you would say you feel good about one of the 5 spots. One, right? Do you feel good about any of the other 4? I mean,
no.
Not to say that they won't be able to do the job, but I mean, Rashad Hill, he's done a good job of filling in as a swing guy and whenever you needed him. But I mean, you're asking him to do something different now, and is he going to be able to handle that increased role? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You do wonder that if now Rick is going to have to go out and try to find somebody that's been cut, a veteran. I almost think you're obligated to, don't you? Because I mean, if Rashad Hill goes down, now what are you doing?
Dex, go ahead.
And I feel like, I asked Judd about this yesterday. I mean, and this was before too. Rashad Hill got hurt. I feel like Saturday, tomorrow, their first preseason game at the Broncos is going to be everything they're going to need to know. Like, we can't do this. Like, I don't know how you can roll in with that offensive line. I know Russell Okung, I think, is still out there. I believe the Chiefs guard Schwartz off the top of my head. I know Mitchell Schwartz, I believe he's still battling an injury and might not be healthy week 1. But I just don't know, Chipper, how you can go into week 1 with this offensive line. You can make a case it actually is worse than it was in 2020, and last year was already kind of a disaster on the line.
Well, I think you absolutely could because, Reef, for all the criticism he took leading up to last year, he had a good year last year. He was their second best offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And so, do you feel comfortable thinking Rashad Hill's going to play as good as Reef did last year? I don't know that anybody's going to say that. And that wasn't even the weak part of their offensive line. It's the interior. Matthew Collar had I was talking one day, and he had the stats where the number of pressure and sacks that came up the middle versus on the outside was just so imbalanced. And have they done anything really of substance to shore up that area? And I would say no. And so, and that's, that could derail this offense in a big way, where we feel like this offense has the potential to be a top 8 scoring offense if they get competent to above average line play. And I don't think we can sit here and say they're going to give them that right now.
So in the first joint practice, Chipper, that they had against the Broncos, to your point exactly. So the Broncos line is good. Like, their first team line gives you a pretty good reflection of how it's going to go when you play good defensive lines. And that's Cleveland basically got shoved around. Kirk had a pass batted down, which I believe was a big Kirk storyline circa 2018 or so. But he had a pass. He was sacked technically a couple of times, but you're exactly right. What I fear is the interior pressure is going to remain a problem, and then the pressure from Kirk's blind side, if Hill plays like Hill does, which is okay but not great, that's going to be a problem too. And now we're back to square one, which is, well, how can Kirk operate if there's pressure constantly? And then that goes back to Zim defaulting to, screw it, let's just run Dalvin left, right, and and so that's where we go. That's where we go to a place where the Vikings shouldn't be now, which is because that emboldens Mike then to say, what? Let's just run the bleeping ball.
Well, and think about that. Like, how much of your offense change is just your whole psychology about how you're going to attack people when you don't trust your offensive line? I mean, and you see it, like, it's like you play it safe. You don't, you don't, take shots down the field. You don't open it up. And hey, it's not the worst thing in the world to hand it to Dalvin because he's good enough, but it's just not, you're not maximizing what your skill guys, you're not maximizing what your offense could be. And so it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall of their offensive meeting rooms to know, like, the level of panic that they might be feeling right now with their offensive line, and just how much trust they have to be able to really implement everything they want to be able to do. And, maybe they have more than what we have on the outside. I don't know, but it's hard to think that they could look at that and say, you know what, we got where we wanted to be with the offensive line. I don't know how they could say that internally.
They didn't. There's no way. So I went to 13 of the 14 practices. I didn't go to what basically became a walkthrough on Tuesday. There's no way that they aren't panicked. There is no way. And I think you're right. And I think Dex is right. I think you're eventually going to have to call somebody, because Darrisaw, they're trying to say, yeah, it went really well. Okay, he ain't playing week one. And look, if he could play, Mike ain't playing him. He's not going to put a rookie in there. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I think what Dex broached on Purple Daily yesterday, I think is right. I think you're going to have to call somebody up, an Okung or somebody like that, and just be like, come in here and we'll give you a shot, because we have to have some depth and a guy that can start probably.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, be realistic about Darrisaw now.
Yes.
How often does Mike Zimmer, trust rookies if they had every practice? Well, is this guy even going to have a training camp at this point? I mean, he hasn't had a real practice yet, full padded. He hasn't done that. I mean, he's done parts of it, but not full. And he's not going to have it for several weeks? Well, what can you expect from him? It's going to take him half a year probably just to get, maybe not half a year, but it's going to take him a while just to get in shape again, and to get all the time that he's going to miss, the reps and everything. So, I don't think you can really, people are saying week one, or that's naive beyond naive. So I think it is going to force their hand to go get a tackle. And then, but Judd, that still doesn't solve the issue we were talking about, interior.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
I actually thought Wyatt Davis would have a better shot at starting than Darrisaw right away. And
I forgot this. So Zim went on the affiliate of the Vikings during minicamp, and I didn't know this or I'd forgotten it. He basically at that point said Wyatt Davis has to lose weight and get in shape. And so that was sort of the first warning shot to Davis. And I will say this. So now it's 3s against 3s, to be fair. Okay. But in the practices against the Broncos, Wyatt Davis looked pretty good. And so I think we're making an example of him here. And I'm not sure that's a great idea, but if that's the case, and he's playing pretty well, you might have an Ezra Cleveland thing where if things fail at right guard, where they just say, okay, 5 games in, you're the starter. I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Well, I thought the whole idea was to get bigger guys in there. But I mean, if he's out of shape and overweight, that's one thing. But when you look at how he played at Ohio State and his pedigree and everything, you just feel like it's a matter of time. I mean, maybe they are trying to send a message to him that, hey, you got to work harder to be in shape and all that. But it's not a high bar to clear for him to move into a lineup. And so I assume we'll see that, see him eventually. But again, I mean, how's he going to fare as a rookie first time through? I mean, there's going to be growing pains for him too. So, it's as I said earlier, maybe it was just being overly naive when I saw, hey, they've taken all these first round picks with their offensive line and everything's good now. It doesn't work it's not as easy as that. It's just taking, guys with high pick. I mean, you got to hit on the right guys and they got to be good and it's got to fit and everything. So, but I'm sure Zimmer was happy for about 48 hours to start training camp, and it take long to get over that, get back to cranky Zim, huh?